Hi there, this is your usual presenter, Łukasz from True Bodybuilding. As always, at the very beginning, I'd like to point out that the subject I'm discussing, I think sort of my conclusions, my observations, I'm not claiming it's 100% as I say, but I'm basing it on practice, on observations, on the research, and everyone can calmly think it over and draw their own conclusions. All right, let's get to the topic. Today we'll be discussing estradiol tests and why, for many individuals, the results of these particular tests simply make no sense at all. Most people have the estradiol levels tested post, in the standard way, post the one that's generally available in our laboratories.
What that means?
A clear test. And here, one particular thing is important. Because this is a test that works, let's say it's reasonably acceptable. But only in situations where an individual is using testosterone, and specifically in doses that are essentially for testosterone replacement therapy, or her, him, and their close ones. So it's just testosterone itself in moderate doses. But the real challenges begin at the moment when something additional comes into play. So it's about cycles, is it? Several substances taken all at once, nandrolone, trenbolone, boldenone, masterone,
various forms of DHT.
And in that kind of situation, it simply means that we have to... This test...
He's starting to lie.
Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's the other way, right? Sometimes it will be an overestimation. Sometimes they underestimate the result, but very, very, very often they completely falsify it. And why, you might ask, does this happen? Well, to put it very, very simply, this test simply cannot always differentiate estradiol from other substances, as many have likely observed.
It operates somewhat like a sensor designed to pick up a single thing.
But it has a problem with the fact that other molecules are simply similar to it. Well, then he simply makes a mistake. Anabolic steroids, as well as various other related compounds and their corresponding metabolites, takie asociacja się stało, what they transform into within the body can appear to a test to be very similar to estradiol. This is the case, for example, with trenbolone.
The test sees the signal.
He believes that this is estradiol, and it doesn't have to be estradiol. In practice, this is what's referred to as so-called cross-reaction. It simply means that the test picks up something,
What he ought not to do.
and it calculates it into the estradiol result. And we have an example here about trenbolone, that these estradiol results come out astronomically high, right? Therefore, the final result may simply be overestimated or underestimated. And now let's move on to the practical application, because that is truly the most significant aspect in a scenario such as this. On paper, for instance, your lab test results might indicate an estradiol level of 90, but in reality, you're experiencing symptoms such as dry joints and absolutely no libido at all. There's absolutely no water retention whatsoever, just complete dryness. And it simply doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever, right? And in a situation like this, it's simply very, very possible that, in actual fact, your estradiol levels are quite low, or perhaps even extremely low, wouldn't you agree? And it's entirely plausible that the test itself might have picked up something completely different. For example, it could have been a metabolite.
Tren, and also trenbolone.
Or, then again, the other side of the metal, isn't that right? For example, on estradiol, on the test, your estradiol result is 5, which is very, very low, isn't it? And the symptoms are just like those you'd experience with high estradiol. Swelling, water retention. the feeling of the first symptoms of gynecomastia,
lack of libido,
a psychological slump.
and you're dealing with the same thing again. The paperwork says one thing, but the body tells a different story.
and that's precisely what's occurring because the test simply isn't capable of accurately discerning what estradiol truly is.
And what with another substance?
Which you are applying concurrently throughout the cycle.
And now, the question that still remains for us to address.
So, in that case, what exactly should we do to make sure we're not just guessing, right?
Should we actually examine this result?
If someone wanted to have clarity, there are far more accurate methods of investigation.
And one of these methods is a test that simply allows us to differentiate between particles much more effectively
And doesn't easily get them confused with one another.
And the next method, quite literally, it actually truly checks. Could you please tell me what exactly is found within the blood? And not just whether it looks similar. It means it specifically examines this very hormone.
the one that we are talking about.
To put it simply, speaking in human terms,
The test is proving to be incredibly difficult. It's just so incredibly easy to deceive these people.
But these tests are more expensive, so they are performed less frequently.
But then again, they do give a realistic picture of the situation. The problem is that, for example, here in Poland,
The possibility of conducting such a test is practically impossible in standard laboratories. Perhaps in medical institutes or at certain medical universities, they might have such tests and perform them, but publicly these tests are generally unavailable. Now then, to provide a comprehensive summary of all this. We are talking about something much more than just testosterone, aren't we?
well then, we simply cannot treat a standard estradiol test as if it were some kind of absolute infallible oracle. Because it's incredibly easy to lead yourself astray. And the consequences of this constant guessing, well, we all know exactly what they are, don't we?
We should also, to a very large extent, be guided by our own feelings and by carefully observing what our body is telling us. Because in the event of unavailability of these kinds of tests, for example, I'm talking about Poland, it's difficult to find a reliable measurement method.
More on this topic and the entire subject. It is naturally quite extensively outlined in the forum and in the article. So if anyone is interested, I'd like to invite you. I truly appreciate all your support and thank you for always being there. In the description, as usual, you have discount codes and a link to the forum. If you truly enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to share it with your friends.
Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed.
And so that's it. See you in the next piece of content. Take care, everyone.